Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After going through the news you need to know about, we're running through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. And I guess we'll start with the obvious one. It's the reason why I didn't do a video on Tuesday. Because of the Jonathan Taylor deadline. I was waiting to record this to see, and I think all Dolphins fans were, to see what would happen with Jonathan Taylor. Unfortunately, nothing happened. This news story comes from Twitter. Multiple sources reported that the Dolphins never really had a deal on the table with them, even though there have been contradictory reports from places like NFL Network, Pro Football Rumors. I think even Mike Florio had reported something along the lines of that. Obviously, I think pretty much every Dolphins beat writer, Barry Jackson, Omar Kelly, all reported that the Dolphins had some sort of offer on the table. So there was a lot of reports that contradicted each other. I don't know what the offer was. I mean, there was even an offer that they offered a considerable amount to the Colts, like a reasonable offer. That was why they reported. There was a lot of different things. It's hard to kind of narrow it down to one source, like we normally do here. But it sucks. It's unfortunate. I really wanted this trade to happen. It would just have been fun. I think we all remember Ricky Williams and how fun that was, and even Reggie Bush. And I know some people like Ronnie Brown, even though I'm not one of those people. And even Lamar Miller will throw in there because why not? And we had a short stint with Jay Ajayi. No, Sean Moreno had a really good game once, if you all remember the opener against the Patriots. That was another great Dolphins running back performance. But, it would have been nice to have a great running back in the backfield. And I was thinking about this the other day, not to throw salt on the wound, but I was like, man, if we got Jonathan Taylor, it would really be like the perfect backfield 2.0 with those three running backs, Raheem Mostert, Jonathan Taylor, and A-Chain. That would have been really, really fun. But it didn't happen. Obviously, the Dolphins were rumored, at least, to have tried to trade for two other running backs early in the year, like Devon A-Chain. Excuse me, not Devon A-Chain, my brain scrambled. Dalvin Cook and Josh Jacobs. Obviously, it was widely reported that they tried to trade for them as well. They apparently really liked Jahmyr Gibbs in the draft, and then the Lions took him pretty high, which was unexpected. So yeah, it's obviously they've been searching for running backs, even dating back to when they traded for Jeff Wilson at the deadline. So this has been kind of an ongoing thing for a long time, and they really didn't hit on any of them in terms of getting a deal done. Now, how real were some of these things? Who knows? Because clearly there's some people out there that think it wasn't that real. But it's unfortunate, and it is what it is. I mean, it would have been awesome. But, the Dolphins have a really good ground attack. I hope A-Chain can kind of form into that playmaker that a lot of people think he can be, even though I still am skeptical of that. I think Raheem Mostert, when he first got here, I did not expect anything from him. I was like, all right, maybe he stays healthy. And even then, I was like, all right, was he a product of the Shanahan offense? Because we've seen a lot of running backs come and go out of that, even though it's the same scheme. But we've seen a lot of running backs kind of die off that were productive in that scheme very quickly, especially if they're coming off an injury. And he's been very surprising since he's been a Dolphin. He's been way more of a playmaker than I ever thought he was. And so they still have a good backfield. Jeff Wilson, I'm not the biggest fan of Jeff Wilson, but I hope A-Chain can kind of form into that role of like, okay, and he can kind of become a playmaker. I hope he can in his rookie season. But speaking of A-Chain, and just because I want to put this in here because we're talking about running backs, he is, and I'm sure everybody already knows this, obviously he suffered I think it was against Houston, or am I schizophrenic? I don't know. I could be smashing memories together. But I think, anyway, it doesn't matter what game it was, but he is fine. I think it definitely was against Houston, actually. No, it definitely wasn't against Jacksonville. But yeah, he's fine. So at least the backfield's healthy, and Ahmed has looked good in preseason as well. Throw his name in there. Honestly, Ahmed has looked better than Jeff Wilson has ever really looked in a Dolphins uniform. I hope Jeff can come back healthy and he just completely turns it around, because the end of last year was kind of bad. But yeah, again, the revolving stories around these dang running backs this year has driven me crazy, dude. It's driven me insane. It's driven me insane. I'm glad it's over. This one I wanted the most, though, because I think he's the best player out of all of the rumored guys. I think he's by far the best. I loved him in the draft. If you've been following the channel this long, he was my favorite player. He was one of my favorite players in that draft. So he was. I love the way he plays the game, and it sucks that we couldn't get a deal done, because I really wanted to see him in a Dolphins uniform. Just because personally, he's one of my one of my favorite players in the league. So moving on from the running backs. Dolphins agree. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins agree to extension with Zach Sealer. The deal's worth up to $38 million, and $38 million. It can top out at $35 million with incentives. How much is this guaranteed? It's $20 million in guaranteed money, which is a pretty good deal for him. I think that's a reasonable deal. Interesting that this got done before the Christian Wilkins thing. Even though I know a lot of Dolphins fans are freaking out about it, but I hope a deal gets done with him. I don't know what the heck's going on with that. I don't know. I don't know what the problem is. I know that there's been arguments over his sack production. That was reported, but that needs to get done. I'm not really worried about it. I honestly don't think he's going to ever leave. At least in the near future, I don't think he's going to leave. Especially if the Dolphins have a successful 2023. There's no way Vic, if you guys have been keeping up with the press conferences Vic has done, loves him to death, and I think the fans love him to death. He's a phenomenal player. We saw what the front looked like without him on the field against Jacksonville, and it did not look good. So hopefully that gets done. Zach Sealer, ever since 2019, ever since we picked him up from the Ravens, he's been phenomenal. He's been great. It's some great moments as a Dolphin so far, and has always gotten better every year he's played. So he deserves it. And I like the defensive tackle room. I like Raekwon Davis as well. Deshaun Hand kind of played terrible against Jacksonville, but that was a high-quality team, and he's not a starting defensive tackle in the NFL. Still, it is kind of, it's like, all right, hopefully none of those guys get hurt. And I know a lot of people really want Akeem Hicks to come in, but I like the room that they have as long as they stay relatively healthy. Plus, Christian Wilkins plays all the snaps all the time. He never, ever, ever gets off the field. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins released linebacker Malik Reed. It's one of the bigger cuts over the last week, few days. He looks bad against Houston, so I'm not surprised about this. Not a very good athlete, and really struggled to contain the quarterback on bootlegs, and it just really was. He didn't look good. This is also something interesting. The Dolphins have finalized their tight end room. The tight end room, as of right now, and this comes from FinFanatic.com, as of right now this is really interesting. The Dolphins have cut Eric Saubert, obviously the tight end they got from Denver. Their tight end room looks like this: Durham Smythe, Tyler Croft, and Tanner Connor are your Miami Dolphins tight ends for this season. I actually like the way Durham has looked in preseason. He's actually looked good, which is a good thing. I hope he can give us I doubt. Listen, if we can get an Anthony Fasano season out of him, I think we'll all be pretty happy. I think he's capable of that, and he's played in the league a long time, so he should kind of have that savvy in him. So hopefully we can get that out of him. And but I like this tight end room. I like Tyler Croft. He played really well in the preseason, especially in run blocking. And I think, and I've said this before, I think um, one of the bigger sneaky good things about this team this year versus the team last year is the tight ends are bigger, more physical, and they're much better at run blocking. And Tyler Croft, obviously coming from San Francisco, he knows the scheme well, and he's a very, very, very good run blocker. So I just thought that was interesting. I like the tight end room. You know, Elijah Higgins, who we drafted and converted from receiver to tight end, didn't play well. So that doesn't surprise me, which is very disappointing. Because I thought, oh man, it looked like maybe he had something in him, but it didn't really look like that, unfortunately. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins trade offensive lineman Dan Feeney to the Chicago Bears. Very interesting trade. I believe the Dolphins... I just want to make sure about this because I want to double check. Why can I not see this? Sorry, guys. I think they obtained a 6th-round pick. I don't know why it's not on this in this article, but I believe it's a 6th-round pick. You guys can double check if you want to, but which is actually pretty nice for Dan Feeney. You know, Chicago obviously got a lot of assets. I guess basically like, we won't really miss this. So yeah, Dan Feeney's gone, and the Dolphins acquired a draft pick. Not bad. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Sneaky heartbreaking. If you're a longtime Dolphins fan. Not heartbreaking, but like kind of weird. I don't know how to describe it. But Dolphins released running back Myles Gaskin. Obviously, I mean, you want to talk about somebody who's been around and been through so many regimes and offensive coordinators, going from Chan Gailey to Chad O'Shea. I mean, it's kind of wild, honestly. I think the best thing he ever did was as a receiving back. I think that was his best attribute. And yeah, he never really panned out as a running back. He's definitely not a starting running back. He's more of a change of pace utility guy. He never really was a starting running back. I mean, people like Duke Johnson came in and outplayed him. That one game against the season ender, against New England. So he just never really was that guy, and that speaks to the lack of talent at the running back position the Dolphins have had over the last 5 years. Is that running back room was really bad. The Patrick Laird, Savon Ahmed, Myles Gaskin. I mean, those guys were taking serious snaps at the running back position. I mean, if you guys remember we tried to get Jonathan Howard in here, the former Eagles running back. That didn't work out. So it kind of sucks to see him go, because I don't know why. There were some great Myles Gaskin's moments and some cool games that were thrown in there in his career as a Dolphin. I want to say retire, like, if he never plays another down with the Dolphins, left with an above 500 record, which is pretty cool. I think so. I believe he did. Dolphins, this next news story goes to Pro Football Rumors. This one actually surprised me. But when I started to think about it, I was like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Dolphins released Chosen Anderson / Robbie Anderson, if you're confused who that is. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you're not. Yeah, it surprised me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. But when I was thinking about it and I was talking about it with somebody else, they were thinking, he's not a great run blocker. Doesn't really add another element to the team because we already have 2 people that do what he does better. And we needed a slot guy, and he's not that. And Braxton, who's played phenomenal in preseason, he's looked really good. There was like, what the heck? I thought he might take the Trent Sherfield job, but the Trent Sherfield job had a lot of dirty work involved in it, where it's like, is Robbie going to run block? No. So, excuse me, he's not going to be that. Cedric Wilson looks like he's going to be that. Obviously, we're going to talk about that here in a second, but he reworked his deal. And he's actually looked better in preseason. I hope he comes back healthy. Because Cedric Wilson has real talent. And we saw a little bit at the end of last year on that punt return. We saw it a few times in the preseason, which is good. And he almost had that deep pass against Houston. So yeah, Cedric Wilson, the emergence of him if he can take that Trent Sherfield role, then that's a much more we upgraded a lot at that position if he can kind of contribute at a high level in that role. Kind of wild that River Craycraft. As of now, I don't think he's been let go. But yeah, kind of interesting. Some other notable players. Justin Bethel was released, which is interesting. Ryan Hayes was waived. Elijah Higgins was waived. Braylon Sanders was waived. Trill Williams was waived. Placed on PUP was Nick Needham. Placed on IR was Eric Staubert. I thought he was released. My bad. Eric Staubert and Keon Crossan. I thought he was released, or maybe he was after this article was made. Tyler Croft was released. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So Tyler Croft did not make the team. I thought he did make the team. I was just reading an article about him staying on the team. That's my bad. What the heck is the tight end? Or did he come back? I'm going to have to look at that. We'll get to the bottom of that at the end of the show. Wilkins, this is an interesting report here. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Christian Wilkins failed to reach extension agreement. There have been apparently the argument, and if I can find the quote here. Maybe it wasn't in this article, but I believe they were saying that the sack production has been an issue with him getting a deal done with him. And I guess the guaranteed money has also been an issue, comparing his contract to others. So hopefully they can hash that out. But we talked about that a little bit earlier. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Another 2019 / no, was it 2019? Draft class, no, it was 2020 draft class member, excuse me. Dolphins trade cornerback Noah Igbenogany to the Cowboys for cornerback Kelvin Joseph, which is an interesting trade, to say the least, for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, Igbenogany looked terrible in preseason, I'm not going to lie to you, especially against Jacksonville. He just never had it, dude. I'm not going to lie. He's honestly not even a starter in the league, which is crazy. I wanted us to try him at safety, especially since there's a void there. We never really did that either. And he might not have the range to do that, because he was a very below average athlete. I don't know if that was because he didn't see it or feel the game well, because in college he was a great athlete. I don't know what happened to him. I really don't. But that did not translate to the NFL. He is one of the all-time worst draft picks in Dolphins history. He's definitely not worse than Charles Harris. He's not that bad. But he's lower than people like Jared Odrick and some other people that are on that list. He never contributed other than the awesome interception. I think it was Sunday Night Football against Pittsburgh. Obviously, that was awesome. But other than that, the Vikings game comes to mind. There have been a lot of bad moments with Igbenogany, and I don't even want to. I would have to go back through that first round again. But yeah, he was not a very good pick, and the Dolphins gained Kelvin Joseph, who I believe is like, I expect to play at maybe special teams. I think is where you're going to see him the most. I don't really think he's going to see the field too much, obviously unless there's some injuries. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the starting corners are, especially after the game against Jacksonville, which was interesting to say the least. I think we covered everything. We talked about Zach Sealer. We talked about some of the 53-man. But I thought Tyler Croft made the team. That's the only thing that I guess I was wrong about. Or maybe I'm not wrong. I don't know which is the typo. Because there's this one article saying he made it and then the other one didn't. Last but not least, Dolphins preseason finale, which I really wanted to talk about. Obviously, it got cut short because of the Deadwood Davis injury. But there's a lot of interesting stuff that happened in this game. Number one, I think the biggest takeaways from this game, the defensive tackles, there's a big drop-off after I don't know. I don't think we saw Rick Monday. I would have to go back and look at the game. But clearly, if our two main guys get hurt, that's a problem. Because they look terrible in this game. The backup defensive tackles look terrible. Corners on the outside really struggled. Igbinoghene struggled hard. Cater Kohu, a lot of busted coverages on the back end, which you don't really like to see, especially from Cater. Obviously, he's learning on your defense too. But on that fourth down, that was a busted coverage, miscommunication. I don't know whose fault it was, but you saw some of that in the game as well. We didn't really do anything. We were in like pretty much basic zone coverage the entire time. It wasn't like, okay, it wasn't like we didn't see a Vic Fangio game plan be messed up, is basically what I'm trying to say to you. But yeah, I think those were the two things that really stood out on defense to me. Because we got pressure on Lawrence a few times, but the secondary kind of just broke down. What else was very noticeable? I think, Ahmed continues to impress with his speed, and I think that one of the bigger things of Dokes, I know a lot of people really like Dokes, or not Dokes, sorry, Christopher Brooks, who can bring an element to the team that the rest of the guys can't. He's more of a power guy. But the run game, I think, is the big headline of preseason. They've really been able to run on anybody that they've played, at least. And Jacksonville has a good front, and they were able to run on them pretty easily. They have a really big front, good run defensive front, athletic linebackers. So the fact that they were still able to run on them is pretty impressive. And especially on the edge, that's been the best, some of the better Dolphins runs. And they keep really running the same runs every preseason games. It's pretty much the same game plan. They haven't really shown too much yet. But yeah, the run game looks really, really good. I think Tua continues to look really, really good as well in these games, and he just looks better. He looks like Tua back. He looks like when we saw him. I don't want to say that because it makes me sound like someone from ESPN. But the point is he looks really good. He's the best he's ever looked in the NFL. So that's another positive. What other things that I noticed here? Shout out to Brooks, power back. Cedric Wilson looks better, which is good. Every game that he's played in, he's made some type of catch or first down or conversion on a third down or fourth down, which is good. Ezukama kind of quiet through preseason. Sneaky quiet, and especially in the passing game, which is not good. I think we really covered everything. I mean, Ahmed looks great. Van Ginkel, definitely not a middle linebacker. I think we can put that to bed. I don't really know why that was ever even tried, for the love of God. In space, he's terrible. Like, he is bad in space. Cam Smith is another guy I wanted to talk about. One of the things he's going to learn the hard way, which he did in this game, you don't want to take chances, especially in Vic Fangio's scheme. Unless it's zone and you have help, then you're freed up to take those chances. But if you're one-on-one on the backside with a receiver, don't try to jump an out route. You're going to have to play a little bit conservatively, or you're going to give up a touchdown, which is what he did in the game. And he can't do that. We need him to be better than that, and hopefully we can kind of wring that out of him before we start the regular season, because that's someone we might have to depend on in a big moment, and he can't give up touchdowns like that. So that was kind of whatever. Weird, I'm not going to lie, the defensive effort, especially by the linebackers, I did not like. Duke Riley had a nice tackle to save a field goal, but other than that, I was like, Jerome Baker wasn't bringing energy in this game. Let's just put it that way. In terms of some of the other negatives of this game, the center thing I'm not really worried about, snapping over to his head, not really worried about that. Connor Williams, for all the flack he gets sometimes, phenomenal center, and he played great last year, so I'm not going to hate on too much. Austin Jackson had a couple of moments where you're like, what's going on here? But I actually think he's looked the best he's ever looked since he's been a Dolphin, which is good. I think the pass protection has been pretty good against two pretty good fronts against Houston and Jacksonville. They both have good pass rushers. Jacksonville has a very similar defense to the Jets, especially in their front seven. Very, very similar. The way that they're built and the way that they run their defense, too. I would say they play a lot more man coverage than the Jets do, but their defensive front, very similar to how it's built. So it was kind of nice to see that, because, like I said, similar players. To see the pass protection not be so bad. But one of the other negatives, I got sidetracked by Austin Jackson. Skylar Thompson. I love how I started negative and Austin Jackson but finished positive. I don't know why I started negative. But Skylar Thompson, it's not, like, he is someone I can't. This is the second time the man has. Maybe he just struggles throwing on the run, or he gets nervous. I don't know what is going on with these throws on the run. He did it against Buffalo. He did it again in this game as well. And if you go back to the Vikings game, this man was throwing darts on the run. And then against New England, too, he struggled with throws on the run. I don't know if he's the answer as the two long-term in Miami. Clearly, he's better than Mike White. I think we can all agree on that. But sometimes I really wonder if he... I don't know, man. He has the talent to be a better Matt Moore. He really does. I think he can really, really be better than Matt Moore. But sometimes he does stuff, and I'm like, I don't know anymore. Like, it just completely changes. And that's not a good thing to think about a quarterback, where it's like, oh, it's so up and down. I love the way he responded in this game, though. I will say that. He never got too down on himself, and he came back and was really decisive, and you could tell, it's like, all right, the first interception, I don't blame on him. That was a really good defense by the Jacksonville Jaguars. The second one, I think the second one was on the run. That was one of the worst throws I've ever seen in my life. I mean, Cedric Wilson was wide open, and he just throws it to the Jacksonville defender behind him. And so he did a very similar thing against Buffalo in the playoff game. So that's something that we've seen before, which isn't good. So I don't know. I don't know what to believe with Skyler half the time. I do love the way he responded to those two interceptions. I thought he responded really, really well. Which gives me hope. But he does throw the ball really well. Just sometimes maybe he panics, which I think is the biggest flaw of his game. I think he sees the field better than he did a year ago. But the panicking stuff, it's just like I feel like he needs to settle down sometimes. But maybe I'm a crazy person, because this is just me obviously projecting and trying to figure out why this man throws some of the dumbest interceptions I've ever seen sometimes. But that's the only thing I can come up with. But he's looked good, and then he's looked great, actually, throughout preseason, and then this happened. And you're like, what the heck? Like, what's going on here? So, not great. Not great. Not great. Especially to, I don't even want to say it. We all understand it. But that's why we need the run game to be better, and it looks like it is, so that's good. So overall, I think my preseason thoughts are pretty positive. I like the way that we barely saw we literally didn't see the defense, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, we saw some people out there. I am concerned that Emmanuel Ogba played as much as he did in the preseason. Maybe they did that because he hasn't played football in a long time. Josh Jacobs played in the Hall of Fame game. So that doesn't really mean much, but at the same time, I'm actually glad they played him a lot to get him ready for the season. But he was playing deep into the third quarter, and it's like, I'm kind of concerned about Emmanuel Ogba a little bit. It's like, I don't know. You would think he would make a little bit more of an impact, especially. He had some pressures, but not enough. Anyway, what am I saying? Anyway, I don't really have any thoughts defensively. I hope the corners can hold up, because, I keep forgetting about Cater Code. I hope Cater starts on the outside, and they move whoever the heck they need to. I hope they go out and sign Bryce Callahan, because I think that would be a huge signing for the defense. And we talked about it last week, but especially watching these preseason games, it's like, if we can just keep Cater on the outside and put Bryce on the inside, it just would make me feel more comfortable as a Dolphins fan. And is there anything else I wanted to bring up in the preseason? I think the headline to me, the best thing that's happened so far in the preseason, is the run game legitimately looks to be improved. It is the preseason, but the Dolphins haven't had they can't even run in the preseason most of the time, and even though it is basic defenses, they're still fronts, and that really doesn't change much in the regular season. Maybe you get some run blitzes here and there, but the fronts are pretty much going to be the same that you see in the preseason. So I think that's a good thing, and I hope Austin Jackson can kind of continue his trajectory in a positive way. But yeah, the preseason's over. It's been a wild off season, everybody. Things have been awesome. Things have been sucked, like bad. Jalen Ramsey, come back, please. God, I cannot believe that happened, dude. It makes me want to throw something. Like right now, I could do some things that just you can't have anything, man. You really can't. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me, if you guys can, if you've made it this far. If you've made it this far, God bless you. Um, but yeah, I think there's been some really positive things in the preseason, and A-Chain's looked good. And another thing is that the rookies have showed flashes of like bright futures, which is good too. So that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.